Dirk Bogarde once said, "The kind of acting I used to do no longer exists because your prime consideration is the budget, running time, the cost, and whether they'll understand it in Milwaukee." Well, all of that apparently didn't concern Richard Attenborough when he set out to make A Bridge Too Far, one of the most expensive films of the 70s. Bogarde had no idea what he was walking into. When Attenborough called him up and asked him to join the film, he agreed, partly because he saw it as a prestige project and partly because he trusted Attenborough. They'd been friends for nearly 30 years, but by the time the movie hit theaters, that friendship was over. Bogarde played Lieutenant General Frederick Browning, one of the key figures in Operation Market Garden. And he actually knew Browning. He had served under Field Marshal Montgomery during the war and felt a responsibility to portray the man fairly. But the way Attenborough and screenwriter William Goldman shaped the film made Browning look like the fall guy for the entire failed mission. Friends of the late general were outraged. Some even said that if Browning had still been alive in 1977, he would have sued Attenborough and Goldman for libel. Browning's widow, the novelist Daphne du Maurier, was devastated. She believed the film outright defamed her husband, and Attenborough actually wrote to her apologizing, saying that American money had dictated the way the script was written. But for Bogarde, that wasn't good enough. He took it personally. He wrote Attenborough a scathing letter, accusing him of betrayal. "You have absolutely ruined any possible recognition that I might receive nationally, and I shall never forgive you for that." And Attenborough, who had actually been lobbying for Bogarde to be knighted, was heartbroken. "Dirk was someone for whom I had an amazing deal of affection and a massive amount of respect," he later said. "I found it really distressing." But while Bogarde was raging over the film itself was its own kind of disaster. "This wasn't just another action flick, it's the greatest epic war movie ever made," says film historian Simon Lewis. $25 million budget. A cast so stacked with stars it was ridiculous. Sean Connery, Robert Redford, Anthony Hopkins, Gene Hackman, Laurence Olivier, James Caan, and of course Bogarde himself. Filming was brutal. This was before CGI, so everything was real. They fired 4.7 million blanks, detonated a ton of explosives, and burned 10,000 old car tires to fill the battlefield with black smoke. The cast spent a month in boot camp, training like real soldiers. And of course, there was drama. Sean Connery turned the film down twice, saying, "I really felt it was too disturbing to resurrect what took place, all those tragic deaths." He finally agreed, but when he found out Robert Redford was making $2 million while he was getting just $125,000 a week, he went on strike until his paycheck was adjusted. Bogarde, meanwhile, had signed on for just $100,000, because, as he later joked, that's what he needed to fix his garden wall. But when he learned what everyone else was making, that didn't sit well with him either. Still, for all its behind-the-scenes chaos, A Bridge Too Far pulled it off. The film became the 6th highest-grossing movie of 1977 and is still considered one of the greatest war epics ever made. But Bogarde never forgave Attenborough. Years later, when he was set to receive an award at an event Attenborough would be attending, he wrote in a letter that he was dreading having to see that idiot Attenborough again. The grudge never faded. Even Bogarde's biographer Sheridan Morley admitted Dirk's venom could be extraordinary. The whole thing with Attenborough was one-sided. Dickie loved him and put up with him because he was a wonderful actor. For all his bitterness, A Bridge Too Far didn't kill his career. He went on to receive a knighthood in 1992, years after accusing Attenborough of ruining his chances. And even after all the insults, Attenborough never stopped praising Bogarde's talent. But the friendship was over, for good.